Welcome to Capital Courage, Delegate Krizek. Super excited to have you on today and really excited to get in this conversation as we kind of continue some of the interviews that we've had around a really hot topic that takes up a lot of oxygen in the room during the General Assembly sessions in Richmond. And that's on just kind of gaming in general, but the specific proposal to have a casino in Tyson's, and then, of course, the skill game machines, which we haven't touched on a lot on the pod. So I'm excited to get into those. And just as a brief for those that don't know, those are those kind of slot machine look-alike things that are in gas stations. Super unsightly. But Ryan, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll give a very brief intro of our guest who we're so excited to have today, who really exemplifies courage in his public service, Delegate Krizek, who serves the 16th District of Virginia, representing part of Fairfax County, since first being elected in 2015, has served in the esteemed longest continually operating Democratic body in the Western Hemisphere, the Virginia House of Delegates. So Delegate Krizek, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan and Rhena. Not only is it the longest the House of Delegates being one of the longest bodies in the Northern Hemisphere of the Americas, my district, the 16th District, was once upon a time represented by the first president of the United States, George Washington. And the cool thing is I have the same seat as George Washington, and we both served on the P&E committee, the Privileges and Elections Committee. So that just goes to show you how the change happens in the General Assembly, but sometimes not so much. And that's not always a bad thing.
That is so cool. That's in a state and a body with so much history. That's one of my favorite little factoids.
But I had no idea. I mean,
yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's like a it feels like a brag almost. But I love it.
I am bragging. I am bragging. There's no doubt. It's important, especially because next year is the semi-quincentennial of our nation. And that, and of course, Mount Vernon, which is my district here, will be playing a big role in that. So yeah, it's cool. I love being a delegate in the 16th district, and I believe in good government and equity and fairness. And I know we're going to talk about the skill games and other unregulated gambling issues, and I have been trying to rein them in and expand resources to treating and preventing problem gambling. That's been a big priority of mine as well, and we've done a lot over the last 4 years in that regard. And then raising the age to gamble to 21, which I've been pretty successful in. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed half of my bill, raising the age to 21 for two types of gaming this year. One of those is the online fantasy sports, and that was 18 until now July 1st. He didn't veto that part, but the other side of it was the charitable poker games, and he left that at 18, unfortunately. But I will come back next year, and he'll be a new governor, and we'll raise it to 21. The other big issue, of course, is banning the so-called skill games, which we'll talk about, and bringing real oversight to the industry that's grown faster than our laws have kept up. So I try to be thoughtful, responsive to my constituents, and committed to doing what's right for the people. And so look forward to this interview.
Yeah, we're really excited. So you serve as the chairman on the subcommittee on gaming and ABC that's underneath general laws. And I think we view you not as just a leader kind of like on our issue, so to speak, but also just as someone who's really intelligent on this issue too. And I think even if people have a different viewpoint than you on like how you feel about specific things, I think it's really hard to debate the fact that you're just really knowledgeable on it. So I'm just interested to hear kind of what are the contours of the skill game debate, and like what does it mean to you, and how did you kind of, fall into it almost? Or maybe you purposely fell into it.
Well, it wasn't purposeful, I'll tell you that. I knew it was going to be a morass, but gaming itself comes under the ABC subcommittee, which I am the chair of, as you mentioned. And there's a lot of other things under that, cannabis and alcohol and other types of things. So it's an interesting subcommittee. And like all the subcommittees I'm on, especially the four I chair, I try to become a subject matter expert and to learn all I can. I was never a big gambler, and I don't drink, so it's kind of funny that I'm the chairman of that committee. But I have learned a lot, and some of it's very, some of the information you get, and you feel a big responsibility to the general public on what you need to let them be aware of too, and to do what you can to regulate the bad actors or ban them in this case. I mean, the skill, as you said earlier, these skill games, we put skill with a quotation mark around the word because it's just a nomenclature. It's not really a skillful game. I think the skill is in not playing, but they resemble slot machines. They look, they sound, they play just like them. The element of skill involved is minimal. And for most players, the outcomes depend on chance. And even if you are skillful, on the machines, the algorithms make it more difficult the better you play. So they are highly addictive, potentially predatory, especially for vulnerable populations. And I'll go into that too if you'd like. But I think we need to take a careful, regulated approach to expanding gaming. There's so much going on right now. And these guys, the skill games, are circumventing that legal gambling framework that we already have up. But there's obviously more to do, and I think banning the skill games which we've done in the General Assembly is exactly what the voters sent us to Richmond to do. To stand up to special interests, protect communities, and really ensure a fair and lawful Virginia. And so that's where I'm at with it. I'm not very sanguine about them.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, I've tried to work with the other side on the issue too, but I mean, the problem with these skill games is that they're, even if you regulate them, and I tried to work with the other side to regulate them, but even if you regulate them, there's so many problems. I mean, they're not casinos that are in discrete locations. And we have 5 in the works. 3 of them are in Virginia already up and running, with 2 more licensees working on building their casinos. And those were casinos where the owners invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the community, created thousands of jobs, and are also highly regulated with all kinds of things that you don't think about. Maybe when you go to a casino, all the things that are happening behind, there's consumer protections. They are aware of money laundering, fraud, and organized crime, and they have ways to protect the public from that. They are age restricted. They check IDs all the time. They check to make sure that you're not a problem gambler, and they're highly licensed and regulated in Virginia and around the country, unlike the skill games. And I mean, I got constituents who complain that people go to the 7-Eleven, or they go to the C-store, or they go to the local restaurant, and not all 7-Eleven, C-stores, and restaurants have had them, but many have, and there's people sitting there for hours and hours on end on the 1, 2, 3. Some of these places have 10 machines, and there's no bathrooms for them, and they come out and they go and they urinate on somebody's yard that lives next door to the store. It's things like that. These same stores that used to have signs that said, no
loitering.
No loitering,
Yeah.
right? And now they're supporting loitering. They want you to loiter.
Yeah,
It's
it's really
crazy.
interesting. In Ryan and I's day jobs, obviously with Freedom Virginia, we did a map analysis that also they are predatory, and shows that they, purposely place them in low income areas. If you look at probably any of the counties in Northern Virginia, you'll see them on one side of the county and not the other, and it's typically going to be in the lower income areas. But
That's right. No, you're right.
we talk a lot with our guests about like what they hope to see in terms of a result when they take on a fight like this. So like, what do you see hope for how this resolves? What does a good result look like to you? And I think maybe this might be a good opportunity also to talk a little about the Gaming Commission.
Yeah, I mean that's you've kind of hit it right there. I mean that's what I see as a good result, is that we would have, that our better angels would prevail, and we would work towards a gaming commission, which is really one of the most effective ways to address skill games. And it ensures long-term integrity, transparency, public accountability. And we've got a rapidly evolving gambling landscape. There's a lot of other types of gaming that are ready to enter Virginia. A lot of folks are looking to see how we handle the skill game issue. And so, yeah, I think there's, a Virginia Gaming Commission that will protect consumers, enforce the law, ensure fairness, and bring order to really a chaotic and unregulated gambling environment is the best result. It's not going to be the result the other side wants, but really even if they're being honest with themselves, they have to recognize that eventually there's going to be a big blowback against these machines if there's not already starting, if it hasn't already started. I mean, but it's not what's best for gaming in Virginia or even in the country. So I'm hoping that there's peace in the valley. Virginia needs to get this gambling framework set up. We're a little behind the eight ball, to use a gaming reference, a poker reference, but it's time to get that set up. And then let's look at skill games. Is there a way to do it? Is there a better way to regulate it? I mean, I'm a legislator. I work on hundreds of pieces of legislation, and I'm no expert really in how to run a gambling outfit. But I know what my constituents want. I know what's best for Virginia in this regard because I've been studying it and I've seen firsthand. But the pros would be a gaming commission. They would be the ones that could really tell us what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think you've done a really incredible job sort of framing why this fight matters for regular people and why, and to your point about not being a gambler, like Rhena and I are not big gamblers. Like for a lot of people that may not even have seen these machines or know a lot about them, I think you framing it in terms of it's about protecting consumers, it's about fairness, it's about holding corporate interests accountable. You framed a lot of the fight in a great way, and I'm curious, as you were framing and you were talking about working with the opposition on this, you've taken a lot of heat from the opposition, some of it very personal in some cases. So I'm curious, can you describe what it's been like working with the opposition, especially there's obviously opposition on probably any bill of import that you work on, but especially an opposition in this case that has a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the General Assembly, like I said, 10 years, and I've seen it all. I feel like I've seen it all. And a good lobbyist is one that will tell you what's wrong with their bill as well as what's right with it. They'll give you both sides of the issue. And that gives them a lot more credibility with you. I haven't heard these guys on the skill game really truly are true believers in the industry, and they just are very hard to deal with. And I think I tried to work with the other side. I amended their bill to include the kinds of regulatory protections needed for any kind of gaming. And they were dead set on getting at least 90% of their version of the bill. And in the end, they got nothing. And I think a lot of it's based on greed, because we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars at stake for the skill game industry. And so, and also they don't want to set a precedent where if we were able to really strongly rein them in, regulate them, or keep them to areas, some kind of a really tough regulation rather than a total ban, that would set a precedent for the rest of the country. And they're trying to get into other states, and they're already in a few, not many. but they've had a lot of issues with other states too. There's a lot of litigation in Pennsylvania, especially. I've kind of followed the news up there, and the Philadelphia Inquirer had a big article recently. But it's difficult to work. It's difficult to work with them because they've taken this kind of personally, almost. I don't know. I mean, I've never really run up against a lobbying effort that was so gung ho. I mean, what happens normally in Virginia is if you don't get your bill in, you try next year. You work with the legislators. You figure out
most
what
states really,
yeah, most states, right? And you try to figure it out, but you don't go into a state illegally, set up your machines, and then say, hey, why we're here? You need to regulate us or not. We're going to be here no matter what. And that's what we got in Virginia.
I can speak on my experience as well, and I know a little bit about yours, Delegate, of how personal they take things, and also how they make it their entire personalities. So there's that.
Yeah, it is a bizarre situation, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, you've got to, I don't take it personally. I mean, if somehow we lose, we lose. I'm going to fight the good fight, but it's not personal to me. I'm trying to do my job and representing the people, and that's my number one goal.
It's a great goal. I hope everyone has it. To your point of you teed this up a little bit earlier, mentioning the phrase "peace in the valley," which I am guessing a lot of our listeners, if not most of our listeners, know the phrase. But for those who may not, sort of refers to this goal. I don't know if other states have it, but at least in Virginia, we try, when you've got folks on opposing sides, to come to some sort of compromise and say, look, we all live in this state. Is there a way that we can achieve an outcome that maybe not everyone loves, but perhaps is moving the ball forward, and people can live with? You can sustain the law or the reform if there's buy-in. I'm kind of curious your perspective on peace in the valley, generally speaking, and do you think legislative fights, especially big ones that deal with complex issues, do you think that should be a goal with fights or debates, whatever you want to call them, or can there be situations where a bill passes and some people just aren't happy with that, and that's okay?
Yeah, sure, there can be, and there should be. I mean, it's nice to have peace in the valley, as you say, to be the ultimate end game. But sometimes a bill is not a good idea, or maybe it's not ready for prime time, to use another expression we use down in the General Assembly. But it's it may be that it needs to come back next year or the year after that, or it needs to go to a study group. But peace in the valley, even here, I believe it's possible. I always work. I always try to find a win-win for everybody, but and I think it can take years, but in the Commonwealth, in the General Assembly, we benefit from this transparency of debate and the education that happens with a well-publicized, legislative battle. I have been particularly public about it, as I am right now with you guys, but I've also written op-eds. Co-authored a few op-eds with one with Delegate Sia Price and one with Senator Adam Eben on the issue. So I'm out there, and there's no doubt I'm a target for them. But I am, and I have tried to work with them. I did, as I mentioned, I amended their bill. I put in a lot of the bells and whistles that are necessary to protect the public. But right now, I think gaming in Virginia is regulated by multiple agencies. You've got lottery for casinos and sports betting. You've got the Department of Agriculture. You've got the Virginia Racing Commission. You've got even local law enforcement for enforcement. It's really a patchwork approach that's creating confusion, regulatory gaps, and really and enforcement inconsistencies, and especially with unregulated machines like skill games. So if we could get this gaming commission up and running, then it makes it more possible for peace in the valley, because there might be something that I haven't thought of, and there might be a way to bring a victory to everybody in some sense. But I think it's got to start we have to start with a better regulatory environment.
Absolutely. This has been super, super informative. And just to close out with the final question that we ask all of our guests, why is courage important in politics to you?
First of all, nobody should, as a delegate or a senator or any kind of politician, elected official, you're being an elected official is at the sufferance of your constituents, and you serve them. And you shouldn't care whether you get reelected or not. You should do what's right. And that's how I take it. If I lose an election, c'est la vie. That's what the public has decided. As long as I, give it a good fight and have it's a fair campaign. And I'm going to do my best. But if I lose, I lose. You go on. You've got other things to do. I feel like I've spent 10 years of my life serving the public, and I've enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot from it, and I've made lots of good friends, and maybe some enemies too that I never knew I would have. But I have, but it's been the honor of my career and life to be able to serve my constituents, my community I grew up in, and I think that's important. That you must do the right thing. You can't let the other side intimidate you or muzzle you, and especially in this gaming space, we've got to be vigilant and we've got to be courageous. There's all kinds of new things coming down, from online betting to AI-driven games. The industry is changing fast. So I am there for the people of Virginia, and I will keep fighting for them and doing the right thing.
You're going to make me cry on the pod, Delegate.
Yeah, it's truly, genuinely just great to have a discussion with someone like you, because we, obviously our day jobs is working with state legislative officials, and the public right now. I would say people who don't work in politics generally don't have a great opinion of elected officials, and it's just so heartening to pick one word of many, but to hear folks like you, talk about service in the way it should be. So just thank you for joining us today.
You bet. Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rhena. Thank you, Ryan.